All right, class, let us finish our presentations with a discussion of dualism. All right, so we have done a lot, folks. We have covered material monism, we have covered pluralism, we have covered absolute monism. So now we are going to conclude our early Greek unit with a discussion of dualism. So whereas material monists and pluralists argue that there exists one material reality, because again, they belong to the naturalist school, and whereas absolute monists argue that there exists one non-material supernatural reality, dualism argues that there exist two parallel realities, one material and one non-material or supernatural. Thus, one could argue that dualism is the middle ground between the two extremes, that is, the extremes of a kind of absolute naturalism that says there only exists the material world, and an absolute monism that argues that there exists only a supernatural world. For on the one hand, dualism acknowledges the existence of material reality, but on the other hand, dualism also acknowledges the existence of a non-material reality. Now, one ancient Greek philosopher to argue a dualist metaphysic position was Pythagoras. And as a dualist, Pythagoras argued that there exist two independent and yet interacting realities: the reality of number and the reality of matter. Now, as you notice from our diagram, there is a dotted line that divides these two realities, meaning that even though they are independent of one another, they interact. Now, how do they interact with one another? Well, according to Pythagoras and his followers, the reality of number basically feeds mathematical information to the reality of matter, bringing some kind of order and consistency to it. Now, how does Pythagoras make this claim? Well, what he noticed is that things in the universe follow mathematical patterns. So sound, for example, like in the form of music, follows certain mathematical patterns. If we look at objects in the world, like flowers, we notice that they follow certain geometric patterns. So because there is some kind of like mathematical order to the world, Pythagoras and his followers argue that there must exist an ideal world of number that feeds this information to the material world. Now, many people at this point kind of laugh and they say, like, this is insanity. Like, how could he possibly prove that there exists this alternate reality of numbers? Well, let's kind of consider this for a moment. Take a look at your computer screen. Right now, your computer screen is showing an image. And how is it that your computer screen is showing an image? Because there is a binary code that is basically feeding information to every pixel on your screen, telling it what like color and shape it should be. So for all we know, our reality is very much like that of a computer screen. Maybe there exists an alternate reality of like binary code that is feeding information to this world. So the philosopher Plato, who we kind of touched upon last week, well, he was influenced by Pythagoras' dualistic metaphysic, and in 2 weeks, we will learn more about Plato's own version of dualism. So we are by no means done with this theory.